one of the most common things I'm asked these days is simply, is Arshdeep Singh really that good? And luckily for me, he was someone I obsessed over from almost day one. There was just something about him that seemed like it would break. Yet here we are. He's an Indian player. He's done well in a World Cup and he's doing well in the IPL again. And this has been going on for quite some time. So let's try and answer the question a little bit. Part of the reason he is successful is that over the last couple of years, India have just stopped producing left-arm seam bowlers. The Zaheer Khan, Ashish Nehra and RP Singh generation is long gone. And because of that, he's had to bowl a lot of the southpaw seam overs over the last couple of years. You can see compared to other teams that India just don't have the left-arm seam juice. So good for him. But it would be massively underselling him to suggest that he is only good because of his arm. It is hard to build a career as a player with only 1+ skill. And while he isn't a total zero in the field, he certainly is not a massive plus there either, and he cannot bat. In fact, last season, he made it 10 not out, which is almost half of his career tally. So just to survive, he has to be doing something right. And his bowling record is a little bit patchy from year to year. For instance, there has not been a year he has combined a sub-30 average with the sub-8 economy, but he has managed to routinely have an average under 30 and also go at less than 8 runs and over for an entire season. Because there's no pattern of success in economy and average at the same time, sometimes that points to a bowler being very lucky. But his overall raw stats are an average of 25 and an economy of 8.35. That would suggest that he takes wickets while going for runs pretty consistently. At the very least, that suggests more of a trend than just luck. The interesting thing is those raw numbers tell us that he is a bowler who takes wickets and gets hit. When you look at the advanced stats, that's not true at all. Coming into this IPL season, his true bowling average, when you factor in what overs he's actually bowled and what wickets you would expect him to get, actually suggests he takes wickets very so slightly less on average than what an average bowler would in those same overs. I've chucked in Umran Malik here just to show how many extra wickets he has in his career when factoring in when he bowls as compared to Arshdeep. Now, part of this is because Malik bowls in the middle when wickets are not expected, but also because he takes a buttload of wickets in the middle when they are not expected. Even if Umran Malik is an outsider, it's quite clear that Arshdeep is still below average in this part of the game. Yet, when we wander over to true economy and we have a look at his runs per over compared to the overs that he actually bowls, suddenly we see a big swing. Arshdeep is 0.8 runs at over better than Umran Malik, and he's achieving that while bowling far more high pressure overs up the top and at the death. And I compare these two as they are exciting prospects for India in pace bowling. But also because coming into the last World Cup, there was a lot more hype for Umran than there was for Arshdeep. And that makes sense. Umran is faster, causes chaos in the middle, and Arshdeep's raw figures are a little bit confusing. In fact, even though I was pretty sure by this point that Arshdeep was a really good bowler, it wasn't until I started working on this that I really understood how good he was. The World Cup helped me and many people, but it did come after an IPL where he averaged 38 with the ball. And the main reason I didn't jump on the hype train of Arshdeep very early on, despite watching him very closely, is that I have noticed a little trend in the IPL and also in other domestic leagues around the world. That you get a bowler come in for 1 or 2 seasons and they take a lot of wickets, but when you look at their record, it doesn't quite make as much sense as someone who is just obviously very good. Usually they have a very good bowling average, but their economy isn't too good. And as I said, when you look at the raw stats, that's kind of what Arshdeep looks like. And with a lot of these bowlers, what happens is they stop taking wickets, their economy stays high, and we never see them again. What they were doing was good, it was just not sustainable. Our dear precious MS Dhoni was probably one of the first bowlers I noticed with this. And Jarrod Unadkat was probably the next. Both had good career starts, but as time went on, they were completely exposed. Unadkat has ended up being a decent new ball specialist sort of backup at times. But he's obviously a very limited bowler, while Dhoni disappeared almost completely after a few seasons. And when I looked it up, both of these bowlers are in the top 10 of the worst true economy list of all time. They also both have negative true wicket records as well. But as you can see, Arshdeep is not on this list. In fact, he's on the list of the top 20 bowlers in terms of true economy. That is some record. And being half a run and over better than someone else rolling their arm at that time is magnificent for a young bowler at this point in their career. And being that he has now held these numbers for so long, it is clear that this is actually his level and not early career luck. And I would say of recent times, he's probably improved as well. And I want to compare him to someone else here, Sam Curran, who is a left-arm bowler of similar pace, slightly slower, and accuracy. While in the IPL coming into this year, Curran has gone at 0.8 runs on true economy, meaning he is 1.3 runs and over worse than Arshdeep. And if you think, as I did, that perhaps they bowled at different times, it turns out that they bowled at an alarmingly similar period of the game. Both get a single over at the death, have one in the middle, and are very power play heavy. The biggest difference is what they have done in the power play. Arshdeep takes wickets at an average of 27. Curran goes at 62. And we know that of recent times, Curran has changed a lot as a bowler. His last World Cup was so different to pretty much anything he had done ever before. And part of the reason he got so many opportunities in T20 cricket was because he could bowl, he could bat, and he could field. Remember that Arshdeep has just been out here bowling incredibly well as a specialist with no other skills for his parachute. And one difference between the two is Arshdeep's extra speed. Curran is more medium fast. Arshdeep is more fast medium. And while it isn't a huge amount, it helps him with the short ball, and it's something that he is quite good at. But it's as a power play bowler that I think he's had his biggest impact. And it's up the top where he actually takes wickets more often than you would expect. That's why he has that 27 bowling average. When you look at true economy, he's only par. So in the period of the game he's used the most, he takes more wickets on average than you would expect. But if you look at him at the death, where he has bowled almost 300 balls coming into this year, he is travelling at minus 1.2 runs and over with his true economy. Unlike a lot of other death bowlers, he's not taking a lot of wickets at the end, but he's very, very hard to hit off the square. So I've shown you his worth at the top and the bottom and all the way through the game. But if you have seen him, you might still be wondering what he does right, because it's not as obvious as some other very successful bowlers. In fact, until very recently, he looked like a very ordinary bowler. And let's get the obvious out of the way first. He is left arm in a form of cricket that craves them. If you had two bowlers who had the same skills and one is left arm and the other is right, the southpaw seamer is always going to be far more dominating. But there's obviously more to it than that. Arshdeep is tall, not super, but he is a lot taller than, say, Sam Curran, even if he's clearly not at the Marco Janssen height. But high release points are not just about height, as the ball doesn't come from the, top of your head. And he does appear lanky, like he might have a positive wingspan. Also, he keeps reasonably upright when delivering, and because of that, he has the equal 10th highest release point in the IPL. Of the lefties, he has the 4th highest release point, with a couple of Janssens ahead of him. While he's not a slower ball specialist, he does have a pretty decent cutter. And while it doesn't dip much or even spin massively off the straight, he uses it very well. The other thing is, when he does get purchase on it, it spins away from right-handers. There's a lot of left-arm pace bowlers with decent cutters who have this advantage. Arshdeep is a fairly accurate bowler. Being that he is not that fast, you would expect that. But he's not metronomic in a way that Bhuvi Kumar or even Curran is. But you can tell that he has very good control by his Yorkers. He seems to hit them more often than not. I do wonder in the long term whether he will need to add more to his depth bowling variety. But the way he uses Yorkers and short balls at the end is already a very good sign. And one thing he does have is the ability to come around the wicket. And that is where he is at his most vicious. The fact that he can use both angles is another plus for him. Not all lefties can do this. And certainly most do not do it this well. In the IPL over the last 5 years, he has the 3rd most balls around the wicket at the death for left-arm seamers. And he has the best economy of anyone to do it more than 10 times. And not by a little. Around the wicket, he is 3 runs and over better than any other left-armer at the death. He should actually do it far more often. He's also taking his wickets at under 10 there too. But let's get to the thing that is the most obvious about him outside of that left arm. His early lateral movement, or traditionally I suppose we called it swing. He started like most left armers with the ability to swing the ball back into right-handers. We've all seen him take wickets that way. But recently, he added to that and he now swings the ball the other way. That is a huge development. Very few left-arm seamers ever can swing the new ball away from right-hand batters. In fact, in modern cricket, it is very rare for a bowler to be able to control swinging out and swinging in. Watching Bhuvi Kumar swing it both ways over the last couple of years, I have wondered if that ability is going to be a little bit like a seam bowler's version of leg spin. It's very hard to line up the ball if one is swinging away and one is swinging in. And when it comes to Arshdeep, I think that is the only skill of his that is truly elite. He is not that fast. He is not that tall. His slow ball is not incredible. He is very accurate, but there are probably more accurate bowlers than him. But when you start to put in all the little things that he can do, he kills you with so many smaller weapons. And that has probably been the key to his success. He's very hard to game plan for because he does a lot of different things right. And when you think that he could take more wickets than normal at the top and go for less runs than expected at the end, it's kind of an ideal pairing in a seam bowler. Like think of the opposite. A bowler who is economical at the top and takes wicket at the end is nowhere near as helpful. You want early wickets and then at the end you want fewer runs. So the answer to the question that I am asked and that I asked myself is quite clearly that Arshdeep Singh is very good. And because a lot of what he does is not that obvious, there is still a feeling that this might all fall apart. But the deeper you look at him, and the more he has improved recently, you kind of come to the opposite thing. This isn't someone who's about to break. This is someone who's about to break others.